So, hi folks. So today we'll talk about the self-sovereign identity. I'm talking about this for 3 years. I have a lot of videos that explain different aspects of it, but I realized that, I made only one video on Ukrainian language, what is the self-sovereign identity, and maybe we should get back to the basics. So, maybe you know everything and it will be boring, but let's try to understand together. So, the self-sovereign identity from zero to hero. So, let's start from the beginning. Why we need the self-sovereign identity? What it's about? So, for this we need a bit of history that, when internet was created, it was created without the identity layer. So, you have the IP address, but the IP address is not the identity. It's not saying anything about the person behind of this address. And if you have the TCP packet, it's have nothing that actually prove that this data was sent from this guy. So we have no identity layer. So we have no way in internet to state that you is you, or this data belongs to this person, or this person says something about different person. So that's the goal of the self-sovereign identity, to bring the identity layer to the decentralized systems, to bring the identity layer to the internet, to give you the possibility to say that you are you, and give you the voice of saying the fact about yourself and others. So then, the self-sovereign identity, it's more the set of the principles and rules. It's the tens of them. And you could take another video about the principles of self-sovereign identity, but we will discover them together during this video. But, we explain the identity part, but we will talk about the identity a lot, and what's identity mean, and what the parts of the identity and so on. But okay, the next part of the abbreviation is self. So as you could discover that all the principles of self-sovereign identity is extremely user-centric and data-centric. So it's first of all, the first principle is the existence. So we describe in self-sovereign identity something that are real, so the real person, real organization, or real device. So for example, it could be phone of you, or your car, or something like that. So IoT devices could have the identity, but it should be something that exists in the real world. So, and it's extremely the user-centric. So for example, we have the principle that you should have the access to your own data always. You should have the full control on your data and your identity in any time. You should have the consent. So the other people wants to get the access to your data, you should give the consent to these people to get the access to this data. So you are the center of data and identity management. You decide who see what, who have the access to the different parts. For example, one of the principles is the minimalization. So you disclose not the entire information. You disclose only the part that really needed for some operation. So it's extremely user-centric. It's about the centricity and all other things. Another quite important fact, and it's the last part of the abbreviation, that is sovereign you. So you don't need any kind of mediators, the companies or anybody else to be able to operate. So what I mean, that you are autonomous. You don't need any kind of things to stay who you are, to produce the data, to manage the data. So right now, you will be surprised that in the internet, you don't have the possibility to be yourself. So if you have, for example, Google account, it's Google who talk on behalf of you in internet, and if you will try to depict the graph of the communication in internet, it will be the heavily B2B systems or B2C systems that some system like Microsoft talk on behalf of you to do some operations, and you do the operations through the system. So if somebody isolates you from the system or just block your account, you do not exist. So the sovereignty part, it's say that you have a right, you have an untakable right. So we have no way to take this functionality from you, to block you somehow, to act on the internet on behalf of yourself. So you're able to identify yourself, you're able to state some data about yourself, you're able to manage your own data yourself, and you don't need anybody else to do these operations. Yet another consequence of this sovereignty, that right now we have the network of completely equal individuals that if you have the example of the Microsoft systems, to get the identity, some special authoritative admin have the key management that give you the grant or give you the certificate, and it's this functionality available only for the admin. In a sovereign identity systems, we actually give the user this possibility. So every user could be some kind of admin of his own identity and his own data. So the sovereignty, you don't need anybody to be independent, to do the operations, or to create multiple identity of yourself, to create the multiple data point of yourself, and so on. So if you talk about the principles of the self-sovereign systems, that is user-centric, as I mentioned, that you have the full control of the data, you have the access to your data, the data should be persistent, the data, it's quite important thing that they should be transparent. So it should based on the open standard, it should based on the open format of the data, and it should be clear for every player in a ecosystem how the things is working. That's why the open protocols, open data format, open standard, and standardization, it's a big piece of self-sovereign systems. And the huge part of it is the protection. It's a protection from the big players. So you are independent, we have no way to take your rights from you, you don't need anybody else to do something. So that's in short the self-sovereign identity principles. You could watch my video about the self-sovereign identity principles together with the laws of identity. They go through every principle in a detail, what it means, how it's work. But right now it's enough to understand what it's about. It's about the missing identity, it's about giving you the voice, about state some data about others. Then the next thing, let's take a look to the instruments and some general terms that are used in a self-sovereign identity, and what you need to actually have your identity, to state the facts about others, and to prove something. So if you need your identity, you need something like identifier, yeah, for sure, and you need to keep some secret that only you knows, and you need to give some other identifier to the people that connected to the secret, and then you have a way somehow to prove it that you own the secret part. We don't need to solve this problem. This problem is already solved by us with different crypto systems. And for example, one of these mechanisms that allow us to solve this problem is the asymmetric cryptography and the public and private keys. So you have a pair of keys, the private key and the public key. So the private key you as you could guess from the name, keep in secret. The public key you share with the people, and actually what happens that some other person give you the piece of information like challenge, it's known to this person, and then we have the process of signing this information. So it's fairly simple. We produce the digest, or we produce some kind of irreversible hash of the fixed size, and then we do the crypto operation that involve a private key, and we produce something that called signature. So you could read about the different signature mechanisms, but right now you produce your signature, another part produce the signature based on your public key, and then they compare the signatures. If signatures match, then everything is okay, you prove your identity. So it's in simple how this identity part could be solved with the crypto. Then you could we have quite big right now the question, that you have your private key, you have your public key. We don't have the central authority that gives some kind of certificates, like for example happens in internet domains and all those things. We want to act ourselves. So it's a big question how we could freely distribute our public key to other people, and how we could actually make it more secured. So the answer to this question, how to distribute the public key in completely decentralized way, answered by interesting concept of the decentralized identities. So the DIDs is the core. It's not actually the part of the self-sovereign identity, but it's a quite big help that solves the problem of the distribution of the public keys, that other people could know your public key based on your identity, and they could then verify the data that was signed by you. So decentralized identifier is some kind of identifier that could be completely decentralized, but the main idea of this, that you get this identifier and you have the process, well-known process, that allows you to give the TAG document that will contain your public keys. So you have the mechanism that allows you to distribute your public part of your identity. So the identity consists of some set of the decentralized IDs that belongs to you, and now you're able to identify yourself. So you could get the challenge, you could sign it, you could get to other person together with your DID. This other person could get the DID, resolve the public key, calculate the signature, and actually prove that, okay, this piece of data that I asked was signed by this person, so actually it's Volodya. So, but right now you are able to identify yourself. It's already quite a good thing. Now the next question, or the next task that self-sovereign identity systems help us to solve, that you much more than public or private key. It's not enough, because we not communicate any kind of information about yourself, and we want to have the ability to state some claims and facts about yourself, or maybe about others. So why? For example, you want to say that your name is Volodya, you was born in 23 of December 1984, or something like that. So you want to share some information about yourself in a verifiable way. So then we have the yet another instrument of the self-sovereign identity systems. It's the verifiable data, or the verifiable credentials. So the verifiable credentials, they actually solve this problem, that they allow us to state some facts about ourselves in a format that are completely open, that are understandable by the machines and the humans. So together with the data, we share the schema and semantic meaning of the data. So you could watch the separate video about the verifiable credentials, but it's a couple of standards right now available on market. The most common one is the V3C credentials based on the JSON LD. So the JSON LD, they couple the data together with the linked data, context that set the meaning of the data. So your verifiable credentials is the full-scale knowledge graphs that describe some piece of information that could be globally connected with some other pieces of information and create a semantic network of the data. So you have the data, you have something that describes the structure and the meaning of the data, and most important part, all this data is signed by the issuer with his key. So we have the tamper-proof data that are immutable, that are proof that it was not modified, and we could say who actually the issuer of the data. So if I, for example, create a verifiable credential that say, my name is Volodya, I was born 23rd of December, so it will contain the information that will explain to the machine and to the people that it's contained the name of the person and the date of birth of the person, and it will be signed by my private key, so we are able to verify that this data actually belongs to me, and so on. Another thing that quite often it's not enough to have the self-signed data. So maybe I have some organization like the German government that they just issue me the credential with my name, date of birth, and my address. So it's some kind of digital passport. Then I have the verifiable credential on behalf of some German authority, that maybe people will trust more to the German authority than to some unknown person. Then we have another thing that right now we have the verifiable credential that describes some piece of data about myself, and it could be from some other person. So we have the signature, but we have the signature of the issuer, so the authority that issue the credential. But right now I have a need to prove that this credential that was issued by some authority belongs to me. So we have this missing piece, that we have the piece of information issued by somebody, signed by somebody, so I could say who actually issued the credential. But right now I need to the mechanism that actually prove that this piece of data belongs to me and I own this piece of data. And for this purpose we have yet another mechanism that called the verifiable presentations. So the verifiable presentations is the smart way of share the credentials, the data pieces with other people. You could see it as some kind of envelope that you combine couple of data about yourself, sign it yourself. It's usually limited in time, so you could see it as a limited in time envelope that was signed by yourself or for some particular person that came to you. So, and ask you some questions. So for example, Lydia came to me and asked some questions about myself. Then I find some verifiable credentials that describe these data points, pack them together, sign it, and when I sign it for some short period of time for this particular request, then we have a proof that all this data about me belongs to me. So it's the last piece of the mechanisms that self-sovereign identity gives to us. And our public identity actually contains from the DIDs that describe our identities and the VPs, the verifiable presentations, that are signed answers to some questions that describe some data about ourselves. So if we will keep it simple, but it's just the beginning of the journey, because now you have the ability to prove that data belongs to you. Now you have the ability to state some data about others, and it's create the basics for the exchanges and protocols that allow us to build the interactions and the operations inside the network. So usually people finish here, that they describe what the verifiable potential is, sometimes they describe what the verifiable presentation is, and that's it. But it's just the beginning of the journey. The credentials, it's not the things itself, it's not the end of the journey, it's just the beginning of the journey. Because when I have the credentials, now I want to do something useful with this credential. For example, we could have the cinema tickets as a credentials, or we could have some pseudo-anonymous systems that give other people right to do something on behalf of yourself. Or for example, you could want you want to make the artificial intelligence agent to do some actions on behalf of yourself in a verifiable way. Then you give the agent some kind of credential that prove that agents do the action on behalf of you, and so on. So it's just the beginning of the quite long journey, and I will finish this video here because it's already quite long. So I keen to explain you more. I have a lot of videos. I will try to guide you through these videos, but that's actually what the self-sovereign identity is about. It's about your sovereign you that could act on behalf of yourself in a quite completely equal ecosystem. So see you next time.